Take two. Welcome again to Wellness Wheel Wednesday. We have Adele Goodwin with us. She is with Earthworm Landscape Design Co. We had some sort of little glitch that periodically happens. I even come early and we try and work out as many technical difficulties, and yet, so I think it just makes it more fun. It's fun, and maybe we had a good laugh over here. So if any of you know why the camera sometimes switches orientation without us touching it, you can just let us know in the comments and we'll make sure that we can fix that for next time. Anyways, if you have an opportunity, don't have an opportunity to watch this video now, just remember to save it. Please like either of our pages if you like what you're hearing. And if you have any comments for Adele, Adele's going to be talking to us about emotional stress and how landscaping and beautifying your yard can actually help reduce that so that you begin to feel good about yourself and the space that you're in. So if you have questions regarding any of that, or just some questions that you have for Adele, pop them in the comments and we'll sure to get to them to answer them. But before we get started, I'm just going to chit chat a little bit to you about why Wellness Wheel exists and why we talk about mental emotional stresses and how that's important in terms of health, wellness, and function and chiropractic and how that all relates. So it has everything to do with a stress response. So when the brain collects information about our environment, so whether we're outside, inside, in hot weather, cold weather, dark room, bright room, walking up a hill, downhill, we're collecting data about where we are, and that central nervous system then begins to send those signals to the body so that our body is actually in tune with what's going on the outside so that we can appropriately respond. You know, if it's hot in the room, you don't want to start shivering to make more heat. So it just makes sense that the central nervous system is getting this accurate input and we're doing all of that. So the environment, you can begin to divide it into three major categories. So there are physical things that you do. So that includes any repetitive stresses. Sitting is a great example. You can sit for 1 year, it's usually not a problem, but sit for 25 years, sitting then becomes pretty stressful for some people. So that's physical. People get that. It's the motor vehicle accidents, trips, falls. They understand how when that happens, they hurt. So also in our environment is chemical things. So we can have the air quality, water quality, the soil quality, or the foods that we ingest, smoking, drinking, drugs. All of those, it can be pretty stressful to the body if we're not being careful. So chemical is also there. And emotions. So if we have strong emotions like anger, sad, hurt, fears, even extreme ecstasy and joy can be a little much for the nervous system. So if we have these strong emotions, or if we have trips and falls, surgeries, repetitive stresses, or a lot of chemical stresses, what happens is the body will undergo a stress response. So that's not bad, that's great. That's how you learn and adapt, and you're all the better for that stress after you've learned and adapted to it. But let's say you don't. So it trips the stress response, so we have a hyperreflexive flexion response. And that's what kind of creates a lot of tension in the core. And if it doesn't let go, then we're walking around with this tension that's accumulating. So what happens is the body creates these artificial curves in order to manage some of that tension on the inside. And those are the things that people come to an office with and they hurt. So it's, you know, their back is sore or their neck is sore because their shoulder's high or rounded forward or whatever it may be. So it's important to address some of those, but what we do in our office is we address the tension on the core. So it gets you a little bit different results, a little bit more permanent results for managing some of those stresses. But it's twofold. So if you want your problems to go away, it's twofold. You got to take care of that tension, and then you got to look at your environment. So that is why Wellness Wheel exists, as we have Wellness Wheel Wednesday. So different experts come and help me teach my patients and those who are watching how to reduce some of their mental emotional stresses. And beauty is one of those things that people just naturally gravitate to. And women in particular, we like to be beautiful. It's what generally we resonate with, whereas men kind of resonate a little bit more with brawn and their vitality and their ability to provide, whereas women tend to focus a little bit more on beauty. But we all admire beauty. So what's come to my attention for people is that sometimes they're just so dissatisfied with their external environment, and they're, this is wrong, that is wrong, this is wrong, and it creates these emotions. So every time they go outside, they see things. So that's why I invited Adele, so that she can speak to some of these, maybe to these mental, emotional stresses that people feel about their yard, and maybe some tips and helpful suggestions as to what we can do. So Adele, does that resonate with you? Is that something that people often complain about or express when they're talking to you about their dissatisfaction with their yard?
Yeah, and I think it's a lot of women who call me originally because they do want their gardens to be beautiful, and their homes are beautiful inside, so then we move it to the outside. How can I make it beautiful? And they also say, can it be no maintenance as well? Because everyone is really stressed with the amount of work that they have to do in the garden. So so that's a twofold thing, right? It's like you can't really have a no maintenance garden, but you can do things to reduce the maintenance. I have lots of strategies for that. And then also how the yard flows. Does it function well? Is your furniture in the right place for you to enjoy it? Is the furniture in a big enough space so that you can move around it without damaging your body? And are the stairs correct and in the right heights? And there are a lot of things in the garden that can stress people out, and they don't even realize it. It's just like, oh, my yard's so much work.
Yes. So I'm just speaking even from my own experience that it's funny, I was thinking about my mother, and my mother has actually moved to a condo, and one of the primary reasons she moved to a condo was because she was just experiencing so much frustration with her yard. It was a beautiful yard, but it required many hours of work on it. Like it was like 4 to 5 hours. So you talked that a low maintenance yard, but there is no such thing as really no maintenance type of yard. So what are some strategies that you help people reduce some stress around the anticipation of yard work? I'm going to spend hours in this yard, and it's, I'm just going to turn around and do it again in a couple of days. So what are some strategies that you implement for your clients?
Right. We talk about what types of plants to use when I'm designing a garden, for sure. So there are some types of plants that have just the right growth pattern, that they have these big leaves and they compete with weeds.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so you plant them a little bit close together and make a nice patch of them, and you actually hardly get any weeds in between them.
Oh, that sounds
so
good.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
And then lawns, for example, if you go through your lawn and add a little layer of topsoil on it in the spring and add some more grass seed, and you might even do that a little bit later in the spring, just before it rains is a perfect time.
Yeah.
Because then it's automatically watered with the best water ever.
Yeah.
And then you'll find that your lawn will be thicker, lusher, and it competes with weeds too, because all the little grass seedlings are growing there instead of the dandelions, so they choke them out.
What a great tip for reducing some emotional stress about having a patchy yard or patchy lawn and dandelion. Actually, I looked outside and there's like a nice sea of yellow on our lawn. I'm going to take care of it and clip off all those little heads. But anyways, so that's a good idea of sprinkling some topsoil. So getting back to the beauty part of the what is the one thing that you want people to feel about their yard when they go outside? Like, how do you help them get to that beautiful place in their yard so they're actually feeling a bit of tranquility?
Yeah, I think part of it in a lot of subdivisions are the houses are really close together. So when they first come out onto their deck, they see 6 other decks with the people's windows and decks looking back at them. So that's very stressful for someone moving into a new neighborhood.
Right.
So immediately I go into, let's create lovely sitting spaces that have some privacy. Yeah. So we might use some of the taller trees to give you a bit of screening down one side, for example, or strategically placed so that it's blocking someone else's deck. And so immediately that calms people down. And then we look at how big is your deck? Is there room enough to move around it? And are you putting the stairs in the right place so that you're not walking through all of your furniture? You're going down in a more intuitive place to the rest of the garden. Yeah. I had one man who said, oh, I jump off that corner all the time after I suggested to put some stairs there. So that can't be good for his chiropractic situation.
Constant impact, a nice potential butt full. Yeah, that might keep us both both in business. So I think you were talking about some flower essence, and I just want you to touch on that again, because I wasn't sure, like something about you can make, I don't know. What? Adele's here. Why don't we just ask her?
So flowers have a lot going on for them. They're beautiful to look at.
Yeah.
They're all individual and unique, and we just get really drawn into them. So I think it's a lot of things that we're not even aware of about flowers that can really impact us. So there's the scent and there's the colors.
Yes.
Colors are big for people. Some people are repelled by certain colors or drawn in.
Yeah.
And then there are also products made from flowers, like essential oils, and a lot of people know about those.
Yeah.
And then there's also something called flower essences, which are little vials that have been treated with actual flowers, and you put those in your drinking water. And
so it's a way to enjoy flowers on all levels. Oh, I see what you're saying.
it's sort of like medicine.
Yeah.
You don't always know what it is, when you take a pill or something. So this is similar to that each flower product, like a dandelion, would have one type of medicine for you versus an orchid, you know? So you wouldn't take them for the same purpose if you were using their products. So flower essences are something interesting. And to my thinking is, if you have those flowers in your garden, you should just go out and hang out with your flowers, and then you wouldn't need any medicine. Because you know how when you go outside, you kind of go...
Yeah,
and you take it all in.
Yeah.
That's what I think. Just your garden
beautifying your space. Yeah,
is your medicine too.
True. So you spoke to something very interesting I didn't know. So what's the most favorite color of a flower that generally people like?
Most people like pinks and blues, but it's very individual, and it has to do with some people like very rich, vibrant colors, and some people are very fashion conscious, and they'll want like the right shade of lime green to go with the right shade of purples.
So I guess you have sometimes your job cut out for you. I had no idea that such design goes into a flower type of thing, like thinking that way, that people might be repelled by a color. So if I were to go outside and I really wanted to capture a scent, what's the outdoor flower that has the most scent besides a rose?
I would say there's an annual flower that you would put in every year called stalks. So it's called evening scented stalks.
Scented stalks.
And so if you put some of those in your containers or tucked into your garden around where you sit, in the evening, this beautiful fragrance comes out, and you would have that all season long.
Really?
So not just like lilacs for a few weeks, you would have something that was there, and you don't really notice them. They're white flowers, not too flashy, and they're amazing for adding a little fragrance.
Like a girl next door type of flower. Not so flashy, but she catches your attention. That's great. So do they grow in our climate?
Yeah, they're annuals.
Yeah.
So you just go buy them at the garden center this time of year and put them in, and then in the fall they're toast. But you've had your money's worth out of them for the season.
So they just continuously make fragrance? Is it like a jasmine every time the flower is out, or the leaves also kind of?
It's more the flowers, and at a certain time of day they seem to release. So another good plant is phlox. There's a tall phlox that would be a little bit similar, and that's a perennial, so you wouldn't have to plant it every year.
Oh, that's nice. That's good. Too bad for these flowers. They're pretty and they smell good, but they don't have very attractive names. Phlox and stalks, and it's not like a rose or a lily, so poor flowers.
Their Latin names are probably much more interesting and poetic.
Yeah.
Yes.
So is there any other suggestion that you might give to our viewers for creating a beautiful space? Like, be it flower or orientation, or what's your favorite go-to to help? This is one thing you recommend for all your people in order to make their space outside tranquil and something of beauty or art, and they can be proud of and appreciate.
Yeah, I would say they need to deal with a sitting space that's close to the door, like not too far away, and you put all of the elements of comfort within that space. So comfortable furniture. Don't buy stuff you don't actually like to sit in.
Right.
You know, have nice cushions on it so you feel comfy.
Yeah.
And then you look at all the senses, like taste. Maybe you have some herbs there, and smells, like we were talking about. And then the visual, you need to have some flowers around, or maybe some textured rock surface in places. And what are you listening to? And that's where people love to put a water fountain in. So if you can if you can just sit out there in your own space and say, what kind of furniture do I want, and what am I using all of my senses for?
Yeah,
you'll create it naturally an awesome space.
Yeah, I think that actually is really a smart idea. You're captivating all the senses, which what we spoke about earlier is that the central nervous system is adapting, it's sensing the environment. So it uses its 5 senses to gather information. So wouldn't it be wise if the central nervous system was gathering information about beautiful things and powerful smelling things that begin to relax us? And that is definitely one way that we begin to reduce our stress in the environment, which is a twofold part to health. So we got to take care of that tension, and then you got to change the environment in order to make sure that you're not overreacting, overstressing to it. Great way to end. What a perfect conclusion. So that was a lot of fun, actually. So if you just to remember to like our pages for Facebook if you have any questions for Adele about beautifying your space, or if you are like, yes, I need a landscaper, Adele is the lady to call. So please notify her through either us or the private messaging. And next week we have yet another Wellness Wheel live. So we'll just tune in next week at 1 o'clock, and we'll hopefully there'll be no technical issues, and enjoy the rest of your day. Take care, guys. Bye.